With all the big buzzing business news of the day, I'm Vikram Oza with this edition of Business at 9. Hello and a very warm welcome in what could add some sparkle this festive season. We've heard from the Petroleum Secretary Pankaj Jain, and he says that oil companies could consider cuts in fuel prices, but there is a rider if global oil prices remain low for an extended period of time, is what the oil secretary has said. The comments coming in at a time when international crude oil prices have slipped to a 3-year low, and this as softer Chinese macroeconomic conditions persist. India, though, is going to benefit from these lower crude oil prices. It imports more than 80% of oil from overseas. But going ahead, if lower fuel prices end up becoming a reality, what is the likely impact on Indian consumption trends, on our inflation, and also the kind of margins that oil marketing companies enjoy? Let's discuss all of this. And for that, RS Sharma joins us. He is the former chairman and managing director of ONGC. Along with him, energy expert Narendra Taneja. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Mr. Taneja, first up, can you explain to us why fuel prices have remained at elevated levels in India over the past few years, despite the fact that we've seen crude oil prices fall?
Well, I think the government probably did let these companies, downstream players, to kind of, take care of their balance sheet, I think. Otherwise, as you know, petrol, diesel, these are decontrolled items, and the government should have absolutely no role. And of course, on paper, the government has no role, but the fact remains that majority of these companies are government controlled. And therefore, whenever they have to take a decision which might have kind of political implications on the ground across the country, then they do go and have kind of informal consultations with the biggest shareholder, which happens to be the government. So that's the explanation. But now my sense is that if you look at the balance sheet of all these companies across the board, and including the private sector companies, the balance sheets are pretty healthy, if not robust, and therefore, and the prices at the same time globally, since we import 88% of our total requirement. So, and the prices globally are not likely to go up anytime soon, in the sense that not at the alarming level. They may go up to $75 per barrel, $80 per barrel, but that's something the Indian economy is already adjusted to. So therefore, this kind of signal from the petroleum secretary, I mean, this should have happened actually 3-4 months ago, but never, it's always good whenever you come. But the point here is that these companies at the same time, I think they are now in a situation, in a condition where they can take this thing. But let me remind one thing important. When we look at these companies, Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, Hindustan Petroleum, some private sector company, it depends from refinery to refinery. It depends from company to company at what level and what price they're buying crude, at what price they're shipping it into India, what is the refining cost, because it differs within the company, it differs from refinery to refinery. So the internal economics is very complex. At the same time, all these companies, the biggest stakeholder is the government, they have this culture that they consult with each other before they increase the price. And that can call it cartel, call it by any name. But the fact is that they do consult. They call that informal consultation, but we all know that these are formal consultations. That happens. But as I said, the oil prices globally, since we import 88% of our requirement, are not going to go up through the roof anytime soon. That's the kind of scenario. And these companies' balance sheets are good, robust. So therefore, and also the political climate, don't forget, we have elections. We have elections coming to Maharashtra later. All these play very, very important role when you look at these things. But it's good for the economy, good for the consumer, if they
taken
bring
a long
down the
time.
prices of petrol and diesel.
Yes, but like you pointed out, we should have had it earlier. Mr. Sharma, do you agree that it should have happened earlier? While the Petroleum Secretary is saying that oil companies will consider reducing fuel prices, he's also saying that crude oil prices should remain low for an extended period. Now, what is an extended period according to you? Have we not seen an extended period already of lower crude oil prices? How are you reading it?
Well, Prashant, you have said it. I feel it is long overdue. Already it is long overdue, and it will be embarrassing for the government if they don't reduce the prices even now. Last 2 quarters, we have seen all these oil marketing companies, they have a refining company, have published impressive results, impressive refinery margins, and this quarter is going to be even better. We look at the prices. And it will be embarrassing for the government that if they delay it further. So I don't know that what sustained low prices means They're already below $80 a barrel for such a long time.
Yes.
And Mr. Taneja has given such an excellent, an explanation for the whole scenario. So I find no reason to delay it further, and I hope we get this announcement coming tomorrow itself.
Mr. Taneja has also said that as far as oil marketing companies are concerned, Mr. Sharma, this has really worked out for them so far. We are talking about windfall tax and all of that. But these crude oil prices working out in favor of oil marketing companies. These are fuel retailers. And he correctly points out that 90% of them are state-run. So how good do their marketing margins look so far through this period of low crude oil prices? And how is that likely to change if we do come in with fuel price cuts?
No, I have one apprehension, let me tell you, before I complete the other one. Maybe the government is thinking that there's a scope for them to increase the excise duty and collect more taxes, because they need a lot of money for there's so many welfare schemes getting announced. Now this Ayushman Bharat scheme also extended to this thing. So that is my apprehension. Government might be thinking in that term. But I think good governance demands that immediate there should be a price reduction, and these companies are making handsome profits. There is no reason to keep allowing them handsome profits at the cost of the consumer, especially when government has on record announced policy announcement that price revision will be done every day. It has not been revised more than 2 years now. We have seen so much volatility, and at this moment, when the prices are the last 3 years,
Yes.
the lowest levels. I mean, even now they say they want to see it on a sustained basis, low prices. I see no reason. I think Mr. Pankaj Jain, being a bureaucrat, he has to use all the diplomatic the language. We know that he also needs, that directions coming from the high command.
Yes.
But purely based on good governance as professionals, what Mr. Taneja said, I vehemently would, request and expect the
Indeed.
product price revision
Indeed.
to come immediately.
Yes. But Mr. Taneja, like you also were saying, petrol prices were decontrolled. They were decontrolled in 2010. The prices were linked to global market prices, and diesel prices decontrol took place later in 2014. But tell me, what would stop the government now as far as the decontrol really is concerned? How is it panned out in our context? Today, what role does the government play in determining the prices of fuel that consumers buy? Because ultimately, there has to be a downside to not cutting fuel prices at this time. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think the biggest problem is the mindset. Though, as you rightly pointed on 2010, petrol was decontrolled 2014, July, diesel was decontrolled. But at the same time, at the headquarters of the government of India, whether it's Department of Revenue or the Ministry of Petroleum and others, I mean, these are still kind of controlled commodities because they own these companies. So that's the mindset that, they may have taken their policy decisions, but the fact remains, since these companies are owned by the government and the big bosses of these companies, turn to the ministry, to the government, consult and all that. So therefore, they think, well, fine, I mean, we can control it. But the fact is, once you have handed it over to the market, you say market forces now control the price of petrol and diesel in the Indian economy, which is now the fifth largest economy in the world. If that is the case, you have to win the trust of the people, the consumer. And how do you do that? You do that when the globally oil price is high, you increase the price, but when the globally oil prices are low, you pass on the benefit to the consumer. So you win the trust of the consumer, no politics. But if you play politics, there is no end of it. But the fact is that petrol, diesel, these fuels, LPG are highly politicized commodities. And it actually costs a lot to the economy and to the consumer, actually, by the way, even to the government. So I think the time has come now, since we have already handed over to the market forces. Let us do it in the right way so that we can win the trust of the consumer. And trust me, if you pass on this, communicate it to the consumer, global prices are low, therefore you have this benefit. Tomorrow, if the prices go up, you will have to pay more. Trust me,
But
Indian consumer,
yes.
even the most illiterate, is very wise, and he or she would understand it and will go along with the government when the prices go up.
So it's an important piece. Even if you consider the economics of it, fuel has a big role to play on our inflation story. We use fuel in transportation and cooking. Industries depend on it, ranging from tires to aviation. Then what is it going to take to bring down these prices? As far as the kind of prices that many states charge, we are seeing it be sky high, even through a elongated period of low crude oil prices. In terms of our requirements, how is India leveraging
Let
its
me,
power? At this time, we
yeah,
are also among the prominent oil importers of the world besides China. We're the third largest. So if you consider our position with OPEC, we consider our position with Russia, have we used our economic heft in the global market to be able to get what we deserve as a primary importer of oil?
well, you see, the first thing is that, we are the second largest importer of oil in the world after China. And we are the third largest consumer. We consume roughly 5.5 million barrels of oil every day. And it's going to go up to 6 million barrels and 7 million, barrels before we know it. Now, that kind of situation, but at the same time, our thing is that we have not yet reformed the petroleum sector, in the sense, why should the government of India, for that matter, the Republic of India, has so many government controlled companies, let's say, in selling oil and gas and all that? I mean, why can't we just one companies and other companies just hand it over to the public, in the sense, privatize, call it by any name? I think that, and then let there be competition, so that, like in other geographies, if I go to BPCL, they give me better price, let's say 20 paisa less, 30 paisa, so that I go there. What we need is basically the government get out of, except maybe Indian Oil for energy security reason, others are genuinely privatized. And then at the same time, we let these companies compete, and we leave it between these companies and the consumers. We have already taken the call. These are all decontrolled commodities, but these are controlled decontrolled commodities, which is actually extremely, it's kind of joke. So we are the fifth largest economy, come on, and we need to modernize these sectors, especially the oil. We are an oil economy. We are a fossil fuel economy. 80% of energy in India comes from fossil fuels.
Yes.
And globally, the picture is the same.
And
Globally,
that's not
80%
changing
is
anytime
fossil
soon.
fuels.
And that's not changing anytime soon.
Exactly. That's not changing anytime. So even by 2050 and 2055, by that time, hopefully we will be a Viksit Bharat. Even then, 55% of energy is going to come from oil.
Yes.
Fossil fuels. So
yes.
we need to prepare it. The problem is that these companies, we need to privatize and run these companies to be genuinely handed over to the boards.
Yes.
The board-driven companies, government have no role, and these companies also need to be future-ready. None of these companies, or
yes.
BPCL, IPCL, ONGC, these are not future-ready.
Yes. So, Mr. Sharma, Indian refiners right now, they're opting for Russian crude because it is offered at discounted rates compared to similar grades from Middle Eastern suppliers, even when you account for the longer transit times. But has that helped our economy? Is that likely to sustain our needs in the future? What do you think our entire energy security, where it stands today, for the kind of prices that fuel is ultimately available to a consumer, for the kind of prices that we actually pay to several suppliers of oil to us, this kind of mismatch as it stands right now that both of you are alluding to, where do you think the story is going to end?
Well, Vikram, that is a subject you have raised. I feel that it has macro implications. Look, we are 20% of the global, the population, and our per capita energy consumption even today is 1/3 of the global average. So our energy needs are huge. And unfortunately, we are not endowed with huge, high volume of this hydrocarbon reserves. As it was mentioned, we continue to remain a fossil economy. So energy security is a distant dream for India, I would say, unless some breakthrough, innovations come from the green hydrogen kind of thing. But that's a different thing. But I don't see any energy security in foreseeable future. We have to remain import dependent, and within these constraints, we have to see that policymakers make the best possible decisions for the benefit of the economy, benefit of the consumer, benefit of the government. So, and thing is, you make a policy announcement and then you don't implement it.
Right.
That is a bad governance.
Right.
So that precisely happening. There was announcement was done that there will be daily price revision.
Yes.
But where is the daily price revision?
We haven't seen that. Yes,
So,
indeed.
so thing is, the government needs to come clean. There's no hesitation. There's no embarrassment. We are still developing economy, and it's not possible in our economy to totally deregulate the prices.
Right.
And these three, IOC, HPC, BPC, they have been wonderfully working in coordination to manage the supply lines in most of the difficult times. Any nook and corner of the country did not face any shortage. It is because of the combined integrated strength of these companies.
Yes.
So there I disagree with Mr. Taneja that I don't think creating a competition in these companies and privatizing two of them will solve the problem. Unfortunately, we still want these three companies to work in absolute coordination to keep supplying the energy needs of the country, the growing energy
But it
needs
needs
of
to
the
come at the
country,
right price,
in a
Mr.
balanced
Sharma.
manner.
The point is that to balance out what's good for the economy with what's good for the consumer, and both of them need to work in tandem, that we haven't seen happen, and perhaps that's the kind of effort that the government needs to make. We'll see exactly how it pans out. For paucity of time, of course, this is a larger discussion and we'll keep coming back to you. But Mr. Taneja, Mr. Sharma, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this subject on Business at 9. Meanwhile,
if you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.